Hey, welcome to Guitar Knobs, the guitars, gear, noise, and nonsense podcast, hosted today by these knobs.
Tony Dudzik, Pick Guardian.
Rob Chafe, Mad Cow Amplification.
You just jumped right in there.
Yeah, I'm not waiting for, cues anymore. I'm just doing it.
Nice.
Now he's got a seat at the table.
Yeah.
How
Get
about
rid of
that?
me.
He's in the big boy chair. Hey, everybody, it's me, Todd Novak. Welcome to the Guitar Knobs podcast. We're thrilled to death that you're listening to our little podcast about guitars and gear and all kinds of stuff. What are some of the other all kinds of stuff, Tony?
Well, Todd, we like to talk about boutique gear.
Yes.
And that's things like guitars and amps and pedals and pickups and all the good stuff. Accessories. Yes. That too.
Yes.
And we like to dive in and get the story behind the story.
Indeed.
And boutique builders are our specialty.
And they are. And in fact, we have a fantastic boutique builder on the show tonight.
Yes, we do.
Today, whatever time of you're listening to. Who are you, guest?
My name is Matt Bascetta from House of Tone Pickups in the UK.
All right.
Nice.
Now, once you wrap your head around that a little bit, so just for clarity, you are not from the UK, right, Matt?
No, wasn't born and raised in UK. Born, raised Connecticut, USA.
Yeah.
But I've been over here just over 20 years now.
Wow.
Nice.
Well, the accent's really starting to show on you.
Yeah, I hear that a lot.
Anyways,
Yeah.
all right.
Can you do us a favor and speak in like a Geordie accent?
Oh, no, I can't do that.
Even the Geordies can't do that.
If I do that one, it's for whatever reason, it starts coming off like an Indian accent. I don't know why. And whenever I try to do British accents over here, and then they just rip me to pieces. It's never
Yeah,
right.
I love it.
Well, we're going to have some fun with Matt, who, as mentioned, House of Tone. We've brought them up, brought you up. Actually, you're here now. I don't have to say them. We brought you up many times on the show since you've sent these out. We've had some fun. Especially, we actually just recently did a little sort of a telly shootout on Instagram. I posted something with our man Rob here, who's a fantastic player, and he tried out 3 different tellies with 3 different pickups. Yours was one of them in there, and it was really just interesting to hear the differences and kind of remind ourselves, especially when it comes to tellies, you're like, telly's the telly is the telly is the telly. Wait. I think we tend to think about tellies not being tellies from the aesthetic and some of the gear appointments, but the telly pickup is sort of like, if it doesn't sound like a telly, it's not a telly, right?
Well, I beg to differ with you because I think it's all in the pick guard.
I was like, how are you differing with me on this? I'm supporting
I don't know
the
what
idea.
he's saying right now. I'm just like, what? It's a telly, except
all
it's not
in
a
the
telly.
pickguard.
But
Yeah.
the pickup and telly appointment, I don't know. Okay,
Yeah.
Todd.
All right, thanks, Rob. I appreciate your support so
I'll
much.
explain it to you after that.
Okay, yeah.
Leave your key on the table when you leave. Anyways, so we had some fun with that, and then Tony actually
Yes.
brought in. You can get into this in a
Yeah,
second,
we'll
but he
talk
brought
about
in
it.
one of the guitars that we have some of the pickups in.
Yeah.
But we've been off for 2 weeks, and we got a few things to catch up on.
Yes.
Announcements? I do have an announcement. So we mentioned our friend Doug Christ
Yes.
of 37 Effects. So an update, if you've heard the last couple episodes, you know that his son needed a heart transplant. And he got one. He's nice. It's got a long road of recovery. Those are, that's one of the major, aside, from any complications, it should be good, but they've obviously incurred a tremendous mountain of medical debt, and so we're looking to try to help alleviate that. We beseech you to go to GoFundMe and check out the title is, let me pull up the title. The title is Finding a New Heart for Tim Christ, Christ. anything you can do at all will help them get to their goal and help alleviate the weight off of this family. And for those of you who don't know, Doug has been a great supporter of our show for many years, a huge supporter of the guitar community, and he also runs 37 Effects. So anything we can do to help him out, we would be very grateful if you wouldn't mind doing that. Go to GoFundMe right now. It only takes a minute. Anything you can do will help. All right, moving forward with all my breath. Actually, you know what? I'll save this for this week. I was gonna make that announcement. I'm not. Let's just go ahead. Let's talk about what got in our music world this week. Hey,
It
Rob,
really is.
Rob,
It's like
you
going
settle
back in
down.
time.
There's a cold corner over there. We'll march you
I'll
over there.
take my mic with me. It's okay.
We're going to get into what's going on in our music world this week. Spend a couple minutes just kind of catching up on where we left off.
Yeah.
We're going to start off with the lovely.
Yes.
Is your arm hair still unshaven?
Yes,
Yes,
unshaven.
Unshaven.
Although face has been shaven. I
Yes,
shaved
that
this
is true.
morning.
You do shave
Hey.
regularly. We're going to go with Tanya Bolonsky here first.
Way too
and,
personal.
He's going to tell us what's going on in his music world. And then we're going to check in with our pal, Matt, over in the UK and find out what's going on with him.
Okay.
Go, Tony.
I got nothing, Todd.
Perfect.
Thank you. I like
No.
this, speeding things up a little bit.
It's the short version. Well, we have our big guitar show is coming up here this weekend.
Really big show tomorrow.
Really big shoe. So I spent the better part of my week kind of going through cases and digging through. The thing that I do is I empty out my parts drawer, and then I've got some returns and defect pick guards that I always bring to the show and a couple of guitars. And I mean, I just shock myself sometimes how much crap I accumulate.
It doesn't shock any of us.
If you've ever been to a shop, it's like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
The
So-
OCD goes crazy.
So I have decided that I've emptied these things, bagged stuff, priced stuff, and I'm just gonna I might just put up a sign that says take half off of everything here, because I am so tired of carting stuff back and forth.
Yeah.
But we love this. For a January guitar show, it's usually the better of the two of the year. And so I'm looking forward to that. And beyond that, we have I see people that maybe I only see once a year that I get to say hi to. And
You get to sit next to Big Steve.
yes, Steve.
Yeah.
So that's what that was just prepping up for that, getting
Yeah.
that ready, and looking forward to a wonderful 2024.
Indeed. Well, and Chase Gullett's going to be there.
Yep.
And also
Zach from Brandon
Zach
Wound.
from Brandon Wound. So it's going to be fun.
Did you see Kim Keller's in town?
No, I didn't know that.
Yep. He posted something last night that he's in town, so he's going to be there tomorrow.
With big wads of cash.
I don't know.
Well, and actually, Tony, you and I have a very, very busy guitar. This is good, like a super guitar
Month.
January.
Yeah.
Because then we're in like 2 weeks, we're going to NAMM.
That's right.
And and at the same time that we're out there, we get to go to the Amigo Guitar Show.
So SoCal Guitar Show.
Yeah. So that's going to be really exciting. And anyway, so lots of good things going on.
This is going to be a good month.
Yeah. Matt, what's going on with you?
Coming up, we've got a guitar show over here as well. We've got the Wirral Guitar Show, which is a real local one for us because it's only about 15 minutes up the road. So that's going to be fun. Looking forward to that. On a personal level, I've got tickets in April to go see a guitar duo from they're sort of based in Switzerland, but they play in the States a lot, and they're called Hermanos Gutierrez. They're on Dan Auerbach's label with Easy Eye Sound, and they're just fantastic. And they haven't really done any gigs in the UK, and this is one of the first ones they've done as far as I know. And so I got tickets for that. I'm very excited about that, and that's going to be down in London in April.
Oh,
Wow.
Nice.
That sounds cool.
Yeah. Now, how do we? Is that? I would think that's a fairly long trip to get to London from where you are, right?
It's not too bad. No, I'd say by American standards, it's really not that bad. It's about It's probably about 200 miles south.
Oh, okay. I didn't know.
So it's not huge, but yeah, I'll stay overnight. Like I'm not going to do it, drive down, drive back the same night, but it's not too bad. Or take the train. You can take the, the high speed train. It's not so bad. It's like a 2.5 hour train journey.
Okay. Oh, that's not bad at all. Yeah.
I like it.
Rob Chafe,
Yeah.
what's going on in your musical world this week?
Well, this is interesting. I heard a rumor about this 6 weeks ago, and I didn't want to believe it's true.
It's true.
It is true. I got an email on what day was the 1st, 31st? On the 29th, so last Friday of December, from the U.S. distributor for Marshall Amplification. That effective January 1st, they are no longer the distributor for Marshall Amplification.
Oh.
That's confusing.
Yeah, well, yeah. So typical, manufacturer over in England, they have, distributors in each country, so they ship, pallets of product over here. They're the ones that actually ship it to the dealers and then support the dealers, which is where I come in. So for service and stuff, they handle parts and service docs and getting us paid and everything. So I had heard the rumor about this, and I was like, well, I haven't heard anything. I've talked to them a couple times a week. Nobody said anything. I'm not worried about it. But to get the email on Friday, and it was like at 3:00 on Friday. And so I said, well, thank you for letting me know, blah, 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 blah. Do you have any idea what's happening next? No idea. So then I sent an email off to UK, England, said, what's the story? Where do we go from this? Because I got several things in progress here. And they said, yeah, we'll cover those repairs. We'll be in touch soon with how we're moving forward. It's like, okay. So
And you'll be paid by pounds now.
well,
It doesn't sound like they have that figured out.
which is bizarre because I started hearing rumors a couple months ago. So, I mean, they've got, I don't know, between Guitar Center and Sam Ash and then all the independents here, what do they got? 5? No, well, I guess there's 500 or some Guitar Centers. So maybe 1,000 stores to support in the U.S. and supply product and
build and the non-huge things.
Yeah, I don't know what they're gonna do. I don't know if they have to. I would almost think they have to have a distributor over here because they still have a good number of independent stores.
Yeah.
If they were just supplying Guitar Center, Sweetwater, Musicians Friend, just the big box stuff, then they could switch to a model like Behringer where they're shipping pallets directly to them.
Right. Yeah.
So maybe that is where they're going. I don't know, but even weirder, the same company, Jam, who was servicing all the U.S. distribution, also has a Canadian division. They're still doing the Canadian division. So this just affects the U.S. market. So currently, the U.S. market does not have distribution or service support.
Now, does that affect Vox at all?
No. Vox is Korg.
You're right.
That's been Korg forever.
All right. I was just wondering because I thought they had the same distributor.
Way back when. Yeah. Well, I mean, not way back when. I guess about 14 years ago.
Okay.
Would have been probably when Jam, maybe even 10, maybe. But yeah. But
well, I lost 15 years in my life in between then and now.
That's what I feel
so
like
I
now.
I always think of things in the 1990s.
Okay. So this will be interesting. It'll be is Marshall changing models and historically, the reason I bring this up is historically companies have done shifts like this. Behringer, they dropped all their independent dealers and literally just said, we're only going to have these 3 accounts in the U.S. or whatever. And I think there are just like 3 to 5 accounts in the whole of U.S. that carries Behringer now.
Okay.
Gibson did that a long time ago. They started increasing their minimum buy-ins to such a point that no independent dealer could carry them anymore. And they lost half their dealer base. They laid off all their sales, the road guys. And so I don't know if maybe Marshall's now going to take this and go, okay, so unless you do, whatever, $500,000 in purchases with us in a year, we won't even talk to you. And then they can go to a direct distribution model. I don't know.
Well,
Wow.
We'll see.
Interesting.
Yeah.
We shall see. Keep us posted, Rob.
I'll let you know.
All right. Well,
Hey,
for me,
Todd, what about you?
I had a lovely time off over the holidays. And one of
Is it because I wasn't there?
partially.
A lot of rest.
Mostly
probably.
because Rob wasn't.
Okay. Give me the noisy styrofoamy stuff.
Anyways, no, put that back. Get it. Anyway, so I got a great book. We've talked about it a little bit. We even gave one away.
Yes, we did.
Marr's Guitars. I am a huge fan of Johnny Marr, and this is a substantial coffee table book, I guess, for lack of better
You might be
terms.
able to make a coffee table out of it.
This is a hefty book. I sat down and I threw on some of I got a bunch of great new jazz records, and we had the fire going, and I sat down and I literally read almost the entire thing.
Is that why you grew the goatee?
I did.
Oh,
yes.
nice. So you're a hep cat now.
I am a hep cat. Anyways, so Matt, are you you're familiar with John?
Yeah.
Well, you better be familiar with Johnny Marr over there.
Johnny who?
Yeah.
I know the book you're talking about as well. A buddy of mine over here helped Johnny with putting that book together.
Oh, no kidding.
So Richard Henry, he's a vintage dealer, over here, and he's just down the motorway in Manchester. I do some rewind work for him sometimes, and he knows Johnny well, and he kind of helped with the whole collection and a bit about putting the book together. And then when they sort of officially launched the book not long ago, Richard was involved a bit with all that. It's a great book, and the photography, and it's really, really good,
Yeah. Well, and the stories in it are great. I mean, my point here isn't to tell you how great the book is, everyone, but I don't know that I read a lot of the forwards. Sometimes I'll read a forward, sometimes I won't, if it's like going on and on and on. So the forward in this book is from Hans Zimmer, the incredibly famous composer. I was struck by this, and when I did read it, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to share this with everyone. Here we go. I'm not reading the whole thing, but there was a couple of these.
Please don't.
These
Story
bits.
time with Todd here.
It is, but I think it's worth it.
'Twas the night before Christmas.
I'll be back in 2 hours.
If this doesn't convince you to get this book, I'm not sure what else will, aside that it's Johnny Marr. But I do think that it carries with it a lot of closeness to why we do the things we do. The electric guitar is the closest thing to true magic created by humanity that I can think of. Not much more than a plank of wood, 6 strings slung across the neck and a body, a few magnets to pick up the vibrations in the strings. And, like nothing else in the world, the elegant simplicity of this design exposes and amplifies everything about the player's individuality. The guitar is an amplifier for the emotional and psychological fingerprints of the soul. If you want to know something about someone, listen to how they play. How many Fenders or Gibsons are there in the world? And yet, even if you want to sound like Johnny Marr, Jimi Hendrix, Nile Rodgers, Johnny Greenwood, Albert Collins, Hank Marvin, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Jeff Beck, David Gilmour, Prince, or Tom Verlaine, you won't be able to. The same guitar lets each one of these artists sound extraordinarily different from one another, allowing each an unmistakable stamp of personality and individuality. Each artist gets their guitar to tell their profoundly personal story. There might be moments when your hero's style and voice shines through early on in your guitar playing. We all stand on the shoulders of giants, and we usually try to learn by copying them. But the fun starts when you surrender your own irrepressible style as it pushes through, when you find the courage to let the guitar speak or shout with your own voice. You sound like you. The guitar lets you be you. It's always about so much more than learning scales and chords and just technique. It's a direct connection between you and who you are. A direct expression of all you've lived through, all you've become, and all you are in that moment in time. The guitar lets you tell the stories that shaped and formed you. Guitars tell the truth. And because the moment you pick up a guitar, it gives you a sense of courage and possibility of talking to the world from a profound place within you without saying a single word. I thought that was remarkable.
Well, he got one thing wrong, and that ties in today's podcast.
Okay.
Because the magnets alone do not make the sound.
Yes, that's great.
You also need a coil.
Hey, Todd, that was really nice. Thanks
wow,
for sharing
Todd.
that.
Thanks for sharing, Todd. That was wow. I can't wait to read that in my own copy.
Arse. Okay. Go out and get that book, everybody.
It really is a good book, and the pictures are magnifique.
Yes. Okay. Let's get on to
what's going on in our music world this week.
We've already done that.
God.
Yes. Yeah. But what we do need to do is say, hey, you know what?
What?
Tour Gear Designs, patch cables.
Love them.
They're the best.
Did you need to say anything more?
You need to go get some.
You know how you get them?
What? How?
You go to tourgeardesigns.com, and they come in many, many, many different lengths. They come with an S shape as well as a C shape, so you can interconnect all your pedals.
Yep.
Whether
all
they
the
have
things.
top jacks, side jacks, round the back jacks, all the stuff.
Yep.
Load up your cart with all the stuff, and then keep going back and find, I need that one too. Get to the checkout. You put in the code, the guitar knobs, all lowercase, all one word, and you save 15%. 15% on top of an already reasonably priced product. Thank you, Tour Gear Designs, for sponsoring our 4 on the Floor. Let me get a little bit of this.
1, 2, 3. 4 on the floor. All right, Matt, House of Tone Pickups, give us your 4 on the floor.
Right. So for me, pedals are kind of a new thing. I, for a long time, was really just down that sort of purist kind of road of just, guitar, lead, amp, and that was it. Or was using, a foot switch, for the amp to go between drive channel, clean channel, bit of reverb. But more recently, especially because I've got a gig coming up this summer for a friend of mine's wedding, and it's the first time gigging at all since the pandemic. So I started to look at a few things over the last year, and so the first thing I've got in the chain these days is a wah, and it's the first time I've had a wah in probably over 20 years. So I've got a Crybaby, just a standard Crybaby, and it's a secondhand one, and it's just been a lot of fun to, kind of get the groove with that, because as I say, it's been so long since using pedals at all. But then anything that's in an expression form like that, anything that's that kind of a movable pedal like that, that's taken a little bit of getting used to after years, and that's been a lot of fun. And there's just been coming to grips with it. But as I say, for now, it's just a standard Crybaby. There's nothing, not any of the sort of the signature series ones or anything, any extra bells and whistles on it, and that's been great. And then a really a new addition has been a fuzz face, because there's so much like sort of blues and blues rock I listen to that, you got to have that extra fuzz, don't you? Like as opposed to just the drive on a valve amp. It needs that real that real dirt and grit, and that has been something that there's a lot of tweaking to get it just right. It's so easy to overcook with fuzz, to where you hit the pedal and bring it in, and it's just crazy extra volume or such a huge mid spike.
Which fuzz face did you go with?
They're like an original, from the just Fuzz Face, the brand, but like the this
color.
One's quite a new one. It's nothing, again, nothing vintage or super special about it.
Is it blue or red or
red?
So
Got a
okay,
red one.
gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. Which I always think sounds, better than the blue, but I think that's really an opinion. But but the Fuzz Face, that's been the one that I think I found the most like getting used to. And that's just getting the settings just right. And then next in the chain is Electro Harmonix Freeze, and because I do love having reverb, and the reverb on the amp I've got is great. There's nothing wrong with that. I've got the foot switch, bring that in when I want. But then I saw a rig rundown with JD Simo, and he was showing off this freeze pedal, and I was like, that sounds fantastic. That's it was just so different than standard reverb, and it's not like a delay either. And it can just hold out for so long before you bring new notes in over it. But again, like nothing, it does it in such a unique way that the first time I heard it, I just thought, I've got to have one of those. I've got to try that. Mm-hmm. So, and again, that was, there's a learning curve with getting the settings just right for what you want to do with it. It depends on exactly what kind of, what style of music you're going to be using it for, how psychedelic you want to get with it. And but that's probably my favorite right now. That's my favorite new toy. And then otherwise,
number 4.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, number 4 is actually just the foot switch for the amp, for the Laney, is, to, drive and reverb. So if I want to bring those in, I still have those, to use, but yeah, otherwise that's all I've got on the pedal board at the moment. As I say, it's, it's a relatively new thing for me is regularly using pedals.
Nice. Now, just for clarity, when we were saying, what's the difference, do you have a blue one or a red one?
The fuzz face.
It wasn't actually a joke. Just for those folks out there who don't know the difference, the blue and the blue versus the red is germanium versus silicone.
Don't forget the silver.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, there is. Yeah.
And then obviously the original, but the red one is the germanium. So that tends to sound a little bit smoother. So
that was recommended by a friend of mine as well, who's really into pedals. He really knows his stuff. And actually an old mate of mine back in the States. And when I said, I'm thinking, some kind of fuzz pedal, and he said, yeah, go germanium. He said fuzz face red.
Yeah, there you go. Not bad. I also, you should, are you familiar with Hello Sailor effects over there?
Yeah, they're not hugely known, but I mean, the name is known. Yeah. Depending on the circles.
I think he's relatively close to where you are, actually.
Yeah. Are they? Where are they?
I was trying to look up exactly. I just sent something his way, and I was trying to look up the address, but I'll get that to you later.
Yeah, no, I'd be interested in checking them out. I have come across the name.
I want to say it's Liverpool, or very close to there, anyways.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Yeah, that'd be news to me.
Anyways, all right. Well, let's see here. So you just mentioned that you had a whole bunch of, or it's been a while with the pedals. Anything else about getting those pedals and setup that you've maybe want to share or found interesting?
Well, I see again, it's because it's been a bit of a learning curve for me. It's a couple of mates of mine who I went to for advice. Pedal chain, so what order you got them in is something, I was well aware of. There's different reasons behind why, you might throw them in the chain in one order versus another. But yeah, I needed a lot of advice on all this stuff. So I did, I did mess around a little with it. And, I think, the way I mentioned them was the order I've got them in. So it goes to, wah first, and then fuzz face, then the freeze reverb, and the foot pedal though is obviously, the foot switch has got a dedicated input in the back of the amp. So learning that was a bit, interesting as well, was learning, different reasons why you might go with a certain chain. But for me, it was just taking advice from, like I say, from guys I know who know a heck of a lot more than me about using pedals. That's been the big thing.
Nice. Good to have those kinds of friends to help out.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
In reference also to Joe from Hello Sailor, it's a good friend of ours.
Hello, Sailor.
So, yeah, he was up, I believe, out of the Liverpool area, but now he's way down south in Hampshire.
Oh, okay.
Hampshire.
Hampshire.
Yeah, Gosport area. So that's quite far. So, anyways, you can just wave.
Well, maybe he could stop by after the show.
Yeah.
In London,
Maybe. Or on
There
his,
you go.
on his way to France.
on his way to France.
Because Britain's not all that big. A lot of us guys can run into each other at different guitar shows around the country. Because a lot of us do. You know, do quite a few of them up and down the country. So there's a chance if he does, do the shows. I've probably been at, one or two of the same shows with him. It's just, as you probably know, it's getting away. It's getting time to get away from your stand for a bit, and going through the rounds, checking it out. That's always tricky to find the time, if it's a busy show.
Yeah. Well, if you ever do run into him, tell him we said hi, will you?
Will do, defo.
So let's dig in to all things House of Tone pickups. We've already gotten down the fact that you are I was going to say what's that Sting song? The Englishman in New York. You're it's quite the reverse of that.
The other way around.
Yes. And you found yourself making pickups over there. Now, you weren't making pickups previously in the United States, were you?
No.
Okay.
No, I started as an acoustic guitar maker, steel string. So I think I was about 16 or 17 when I first apprenticed, and that was with a guitar maker in Massachusetts named Ivan Schmuckler, Artisan Fretted Instruments. And he took me on as an apprentice and was, just building steel strings, doing some repair work and stuff like that. And then also in the town I grew up in, we had a great sort of folk instrument, like small factory, small sort of batch production place called Folk Craft Instruments. And we were doing like, hammer dulcimers, mountain dulcimers. And so, I was able to get a job there for a little bit. And so that was my initial start, really, was the acoustic world. And then when I left the States, it was come over here and do a diploma program with Leeds College of Music. And that was in classical guitar making and violin making. And so I studied as a violin maker for a few years.
Wow.
And then taught a little bit I say taught. I was working at the school, at the college a bit after my program, mostly as a what we call a supervising technician, which basically made sure that the somebody was in the room to keep the first year students from cutting their fingers off or anything like that. So that was the job for a while. And then, and I started my own company then, when I finished, and that was Bascetta Guitar Works. And it was, I did take on commissions and made, custom acoustic builds. But the bread and butter was always repair and restoration work more than anything. So then over the years, was just lucky enough to do a lot of restoration work on some great vintage guitars, and more got into the electrics, some, especially working with some insurance companies. There was just some fantastic, old Gibsons and Fenders and stuff that would come across the bench. And eventually it just kind of happened slowly, but I started to, I went from that world of acoustic guitars and violins, and, you sort of sometimes just think of an electric as a, like you were saying before, it's kind of like a plank of wood that's got some magnets in it. Right. But getting to really work on some great pieces showed me that there's a whole different world to it, and that the pickups and the circuit and all that are such a huge part of the voicing, of any instrument, and that there was a lot into it that was, I don't know, I just found it really, I started to find it really fascinating. And I kind of thought it's a bit like when you're building like a violin or an acoustic guitar, you voice the tops, primarily. The top is where, most of your tone comes from. And so how you carve it, thicknesses, graduation, bracing patterns, all that stuff. And that's how you voice that. And I was like, well, how you design and how you make a pickup is how you voice, an electric guitar. And in a weird way, there was like a lot of similarities there.
And the pick guard.
Yes, mostly,
I mean,
the pick guard.
the Bakelite tone versus the ABS, of course. That's a massive factor. And then, but then I saw him years ago. There was, I think it might have been the very first issue of the Fretboard Journal, and when that came out, it had this really nice photo essay kind of piece in the middle about Lollar pickups, Lollar guitars.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when the bug really hit me. I don't know. Just saw that and I thought, yeah, I want to get into making some pickups one day. And that was years before I actually did. But then finally, time, money, and things, came together to start another business, alongside the repair business. And that was back in 2015. And then it's just grown from there now to the point where, we don't sort of do any custom builds or repair restoration work anymore. It's just pick up, manufacturing, harnesses, wiring looms, and rewind work, and that's all we do now.
That's quite a transition.
Yeah, I suppose. The acoustic world to sort of the extremes of the electric world. Right down to the bare bones of it, I guess. But like I say, I always found that bit of a similarity with all the nuances to voice one instrument versus another. It's just a different medium, But the game's the same.
What I find interesting is that with both the acoustic guitar and pickups, there's a similarity, oddly enough, in both of those where it's like, there are not many things that have changed over time. It's still magnets, it's still wires, it's still bobbins. It's
absolutely,
it's still cedar and mahogany and
Sitka spruce,
blue spruce, and all those things. But generally speaking, those two things, if you saw a picture of them now, like an acoustic guitar and a standard kind of acoustic guitar and a set of pickups, and saw a picture of them when they were both created, it would be difficult for a non-guitar speaking person to tell the difference, or to say like, oh yeah, these are clearly different. Oh, look at how much change has happened here, or how could they even be different, because there's not much to actually change. But you, as a person who was trying to do your own thing with acoustic guitars, I would find that very daunting, because like, well, how different are you actually going to make this, and still have it be acceptable as, yes, this is what I know as an acoustic guitar. Same thing with the pickups. It's like, how many different ways can you do a Telecaster pickup? And those are just hypothetical questions. I'm not challenging that so much, but it is, if you're going to say, you know what I'm going to do, I'm going to create, what the world needs now is a different set of Telecaster pickups. But proof is in the pudding. In the video that we did, there are radical differences. Mm-hmm. But I, as someone who is getting into building those, does that on either the acoustic guitar or the pickups, did that ever cross your mind, or was that just not something at all in your purview?
No, it was always a factor, because, well, if for no other reason, even just from a sort of a business point of view, is a marketing point of view, is seeing that over the years the market has, whenever somebody tries to do something a bit different or reinvent the wheel a little bit, it always comes back around to, like you say, these, a fairly limited and recognizable palette, whether you're talking about acoustics or electrics. So you bear that in mind initially, is that like, okay, this is clearly what the majority of people want. And you look at why, what are the reasons for that? Is it just being stuck in the ways? Is it because, over the years, whatever, the patterns, the cycle of, it kind of, with electric guitars, it comes back to, 50s technology, really. And in the acoustic world, a lot of it comes back to, early 20th century, Martins and Gibsons. And, so there are reasons for that. It does sound fantastic, but at the other side of things, sometimes it's just that we all get really set in our ways, especially guitarists. The familiarity with something, it's what your brain expects to hear, that's the sound, that's the tone, that's the reaction of the instrument that you expect to hear. But you try to do something different. You try to, you make some tweaks here and there. And there's a limit, though, as you were saying, as to what, would be like acceptable, where you go a little too far reinventing the wheel. It's just not going to sell. You're not going to find much of an audience for it. So there's a time and a place for messing around. And sometimes what's nice is subtle differences that, like you're not going too crazy, with trying to make something that's, wildly off in left field from anything that's come before, but little movements can be nice. And one thing that's just always important, I think, is road testing these things, is you want to make some changes to something. You want to do something a little different with a tele pickup set or with Strat set, then, get them in the hands of some guys who are, really, really good players who gig a lot, who are out on the road, who are in the studio, and just, get the feedback, see, is this working? Is there a reason? Is it worth the, the time and effort of doing something a little different?
Yeah.
Well,
And that's the most important thing.
Yeah, I think, it would seem like it's somewhat limited as to what you can do, but we were talking about tele pickups. Let's take a tele bridge pickup. You can choose whether you want a fiber bobbin or a plastic bobbin, the type of magnets that you put in those, the type of wire you're using to wind those, whether you put a copper plate on the bottom or not. I mean, all of those little things have, create a
how you're
wildly
winding
different.
it,
Yeah,
how long you're winding it.
exactly. So, I mean, if you take, let's say 1950s Fender pickups, there is a definite difference between what was being, and they all technically were hand wound, whether they're on machines or not. There's an operator guiding those, and I think there's a difference in, maybe it was more scatter wound back in the 50s versus what happened in the 60s.
Explain scatter wound for anybody that doesn't know what that means, Tony.
Well, it's just uneven winding. So there's a lot of winders and that will, move. If you're doing a pure machine wind,
Almost like on a lathe.
yeah, it's a very mechanical thing versus a lot of early hand wound ones and a lot of pickups that people wind themselves end up having an uneven pattern
Right.
in the coil, and there's a lot of crisscrossing and different things like that.
Yeah, because that's just winding. The winder's going left to right,
Left
and back,
to right.
and,
Yeah,
you know,
it's a
building it up.
true winding machine will
Yeah.
be more accurate, but that also I think affects the tone of the pickup.
Yeah.
What do you think,
Yeah,
Matt?
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So as you say, even hand wound is on a machine. So the machine, holds the bobbin and it spins because you do need, it's quite a lot of turns. So you wouldn't sit there and do, 8,000 turns of, hair thin wire on a bobbin by hand. So the machine spins, and that helps to build up the right tension too. But the tension overall with hand winding is controlled by the winder. So the wire, the coil wire, is passing through. Usually, your thumb and your forefinger, and you're controlling the tension of the wire as it goes onto the bobbin, and then, as you were saying, the left to right. So that's the traverse, and it's how you're building up that traverse. So
Right.
The cross section of the coil, if you will, and then on top of that is what you were saying about how on a machine wound. So the traverse and the tension is all controlled by the machine. So it's got a tensioner that the wire is then, clipped into, and you can control that tension as well by, how you set it. And then once that's set, no one has to hold the wire. It comes off the spool and you set the machine's traverse. So it's left and right based on the heights of the bobbin wall. And they will wind the coil wire on pretty much concentrically and machine accurate. So each layer is, kind of being wound right over the other layer, perfectly parallel and concentric. And when you're hand guiding, even if you're trying to be perfect, even if you're trying to do it like a machine, you're never gonna, because it's a human being, and you're not, we're not machines. So there will always be an element of scattering, or you can purposely really scatter it.
Yeah.
You can also change your tension in the middle of winding, so you can do a few thousand turns could be at a higher tension, then you could go real loose. You could have more turns per layer, less turns per layer. All these differences affect the overall sound by the time you get that much coil wire on there. And the simplest way kind of to describe it is, the more concentrically wound it is, like a machine, it tends to have more cross capacitance. And this is to do with the proximity of one layer over the other. And the only thing between them is that super thin insulation on the coil wire itself. And when it's scattered, you got less of that. And same thing with working with tone circuits or with guitar cables is capacitance. So if you've got a really long guitar lead, you got more capacitance. More capacitance tends to lose top end, lose trebs. So the more concentrically wound it is with machines, you do tend to get like sometimes not as articulate of a top end, and more scatter wound can give you a lot more sort of highs, a lot more clarity. That's a real, that's a real basic rule of thumb. It's kind of simplifying things, but that's, one of the main sort of differences between machine wound, scatter wound.
Yeah, and that, I think the point I was trying to make is, in the 1950s, when we'll just use Fender as an example, and they hired mostly female winders.
Yep.
And I think what happened, and why I've noticed the difference, and most people do, between 50s winds and 60s winds and even into the 70s, is I think that those winders, after winding thousands and thousands and thousands of pickups, got very almost machine-like, not 100% machine-like, but they, going from the 50s into the 60s, I think that, and there's a noticeable difference between 50s Fender pickups and 60s Fender pickups.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then by the time the 70s rolled around, by that time everything was pretty much fully automated. I don't even know if they had, they probably still had people guiding wire, but it was definitely more machine controlled.
Yeah.
So what are your favorite pickups to wind?
Probably Strats.
Strats?
Yeah, probably Strats. I'd say that's my absolute favorite.
That's Todd's too.
And what I mean, do you have like a if you were winding a set for yourself, what magnets, how hot would you wind them? All that sort of thing. What would you, for your own personal preference?
So I've got a Strat that I have more or less like our 1960S types, which is just sort of a, covers basically 60 through 62 kind of specs. Mm-hmm. So form bar wire in the sort of 6.1K kind of range. But with Alnico 2, which was never used on Fenders back then, but I really enjoy that.
Okay.
Just a nice, real chimey sort of bell-like, nice and rounded and smoothed on the on the top end, and that's probably my ideal set for a Strat. So
we've talked about different types of Alnico, which for those who don't know is aluminum, nickel, and cobalt blend for the magnets. Can you, just as a reminder, kind of briefly maybe work through a couple of the numbers like A2, A3, A5s, and just kind of let people know what each of those types does and sounds like?
Yeah, so basically start with A2, and that is, as I say, that's a rounder tone is the way I always think of it. Is it's a bit mellower because it's not a super powerful magnet.
Right.
The gauge, the strength of it. So it's mellower in general. doesn't lose top end. It's just a very more, open and smoother, rounder top end. And the bass and the low mids are just, have a rounder edge to them. They're not, nothing's too in your face really with 2, which I like about it. The thing is, though, there's a different time and place for all the magnets. So whether that's going in a P90, standard humbucker, or in a Fender style single coil, they can react very differently based on, what type of pickup it is and what type of, is it a bar magnet or is it pole piece magnets?
Right.
That all makes a difference. So, so A2, I love them in Fender style single coils. In humbuckers, I like them on bridge pickups usually, but I'm not a big fan of them in the neck. It's very hard to get an A2 neck that doesn't, so just lose some of that string balance, just start getting a bit muddy.
Yep.
Unless you go very low number of turns, low output. El Nico 3 is actually weaker than 2, and doesn't really have any cobalt in it at all. I think if I remember correctly, that was something A3 came out either during the war or just post-war, World War II, because cobalt was needed, and so there just wasn't much of it going around. So they came out with a new El Nico type, and it doesn't really have any cobalt.
I thought you were going to mention Grenada, but go ahead.
The war.
It's so stupid. I couldn't help myself.
Yes, you can't.
So A3 is the word most people use with A3 is like a woodier sound, and there's a warmth to the, there's like warm mids, but the trebs, the big difference with 2 is that even though it's kind of it's got a lot of warmth to it, it's not as rounded on that low end, but the trebs can be quite present. You can still get a nice bite and a bit of glassiness to the trebs.
Mm-hmm.
But it's very weak. So again, it doesn't drive, it doesn't drive as hard as more powerful magnets will, or even, as much volume, and you can raise them closer to the strings, so especially again, in Fender's type single coils where you got the magnets are the pole pieces, sometimes you got to be aware, especially in the neck pickup, how close you're adjusting the height. Because it'll start to affect the strings oscillation. So, but with 3, it's quite weak, so you can get a lot closer, which gives you a lot more output, bit more grit, bit more oomph to it, really. So, and that's traditional with like really early Fender. So broadcaster, no-caster, early Esquire pickups, the early lap steels, mostly always with 3, and then. They transitioned from 3 to 5 eventually. 4 is like it's an interesting mix because its output is, its gauge strength is kind of somewhere between 2 and 5. And its EQ is just really balanced. So it's really good for, I've made a lot of pickups, and humbuckers with it that I prefer for instead of the vintage sort of PAF kind of thing, which there's a lot of guys out there using El Nico 4 to try to capture that PAF sound. I actually like them for some of these, like some really low output humbuckers that I've made for people to use in studios or home studio, bedroom studio work where they're just plugging direct in, right? Mm-hmm. And the DI work going right into the desk or going through an interface, and you just want a nice pure signal and a real flat EQ so you can do all your editing, digitally, and that's what a lot of guys are doing these days, and that works really well for that because it does give you that, a real nice flat bass line to work from. And so you combine that with a very low output pickup and you got a really, quite clear signal. And then you come to 5, and that's probably the one we've been most familiar with, for decades. And 5 is got the mid scoop and, so it's got sort of prominent trebs and bass and it's tight. So it's it's got sort of sparkly trebs, tighter sparkly trebs, and it's got the bass is quite there and full, but it's a tight bass end.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that covers kind of the spectrum of Alnico. And then, of course, you've always got ceramics. And now I think a lot of builders are even using the neodymiums.
Yeah, that's one I've not messed around with yet. I know a few guys who, in fact, a couple of guys exclusively use them. Like that's their thing, is they make pickups, designed around using neodymium magnets. And it sounds very interesting. It's something that, one day when I got a bit more time on my hands, I'd like to mess around with it and see really what it does.
Yeah. That's interesting.
I got a question for you, Matt. We're talking about the subtle changes you can make to make your pickups unique. What pickup in particular are you most proud of, the changes you've made, and what have you done that makes it unique versus others?
So a few years ago, I came up with a humbucker called the 4-5 special humbucker. And this uses, it's a standard humbucker in the sense that you got two coils, wound in series, but it's split. So like if you think of a Fender wide range, it's got the 3x3. So 3 pole pieces, on one coil on one side, 3 on the other coil. And, but what's going on under the cover in the pole pieces you don't see is after a lot of research and some, prototypes and stuff, came across a material that, has, quite high permeability with a magnetic field. And so it works with something, it works around the idea of diamagnetism. And this gets into, a lot of physics and stuff, but it shapes the magnetic field basically very, very uniquely, around the individual coils. So it works almost like, a stereo pickup. You could wire it, in stereo, where one coil only affects the 3 treble strings, the other coil only picks up the 3 bass strings. And we use 2 different magnets as well. So it's a 4 and a 5. That's why it's called the 4-5. So there's an Alnico 4 and an Alnico 5 underneath, just like a normal humbucker's made. A bar magnet underneath between the 2 coils. But they're 2 separate magnets, 2 different grades. And so it's about how uniquely shaped the magnetic field is. Makes it very, very clear and precise. It kind of back to what I was saying before. It's great for studio work and, guys who are either, going straight into the desk, or if you're using a lot of, pedals and modulation and stuff. And this can give you a very, very, clear, very balanced, very precise kind of, signal. And that was just quite different. It wasn't something that I had seen on the market before. And, we were just really, I was proud to come up with that. And it got reviewed by a magazine over here years ago. And it just had a really, really great review. And I think we got like a Player's Choice Award.
Nice.
Or something through that magazine. So I was quite proud of that, in terms of something, and again, we're kind of talking along those lines again of like making some changes, doing something a little new, but not necessarily reinventing the wheel. And it was well received, and it's a good seller. And currently we're working on the next generation of it, which actually I'm working with John Moores University in Liverpool and their physics department, and we got some grant money, and we're taking this idea and going to a different level with it. And then we're in the process of working on a patent for the technology as well. But it's all still totally passive, fits in any humbucker space. There's nothing crazy about it, in terms of as an aftermarket part. So yeah, that's, we're I'm proud that has been well received, and, as an idea, and as something that was a little bit different.
Very cool.
So what do you think about, I mean, there seems to be such mythology behind PAF style pickups. And, you know, when you think about it, I mean, there are a lot of winders out there that make an equivalent PAF. Some sound better than others. I mean, you know, we think of like Throwbacks and Bare Knuckles and even Jason Lawler's stuff. I mean, you know, those are highly regarded as coming as close as you can, I guess, to vintage. Is there any way to really mimic or duplicate what Gibson did in the late 50s?
Well, I think it's yes and no. It's the consistency was never the name of the game back in the 50s with pretty much any, you know, guitar company. There was so much going on, just even from day to day, you know, changes and, you know, especially Fender. Gibson maybe, you know, arguably at the time was maybe a little more consistent, and they were doing, you know, they were doing all machine wound right from the beginning. Gibson never hand wound.
Right.
So it was always machines. But yeah, the thing is though, even with the machine wound, that there is so much variation. I've played and worked on and, you know, dissected dozens of PAFs, and there's almost no two alike. Mm-hmm. You know, it's and some aren't that great, you know, that which is just a fact about them, and some are fantastic. And I think that's just like all the modern ones, you know. The PAF formula is really well known, but a big thing, and I'm not the only one who pays attention to this, but I think a big factor is trying to recreate the steel parts, you know, the pole pieces, the slugs, the keeper bar under the pole screws. These use, you know, in pickups, there's various grades of steel that we use for stuff like that. You know, carbon content, type of carbon steel it is. So they're graded like, 1010, 1012, 1018. And typically back then in the 50s, especially with the pole pieces, you know, they were a lower carbon content quite often. They were usually 1010, and a higher carbon content usually in the slugs and the keeper. And matching that's actually kind of quite important if you want to really, you know, get down to the nitty gritty of trying to, you know, recreate it. Because as I say, the other bits we know quite well: 42 gauge wire, plain enamel insulation, the size of the bobbins and number of turns, and, you know, machine wound. But again, then you get into things with that, you know, like trying to understand how many turns per layer, what kind of tension they were putting on. And this gets into, you know, a lot of different subtle things, but, you know, as we've sort of said before, it's all these little subtle things that add up to the sum of it, right? And that's what makes a pickup. So trying to get all those things right is very, very difficult, and we'll get you there. But at the end of the day, where is there? Because there was so much variation at the time anyway. So, you know, it depends on exactly what you're trying to aim for. And I mean, I think, you know, we do our true PAF range, and that's our best seller, you know, by quite a bit. But I think, you know, I think they're great. I've gone through a lot of depths to try and, you know, like I say, make sure I'm always, you know, got the carbon content, the steel correct, and winding patterns from various ones I've worked on over the years. But, you know, again, they were, you know, they're all a bit different. But I'd say out there, one of the best, you know, getting it really right is the Throwback guys. You know, he's got some original machines, you know, actual machines, you know, from Kalamazoo and that do the job, you know, and you know, he's seen, you know, dozens, if not hundreds of them, you know, over the years as well. So, you know, yeah, there is some great modern reproductions, and that thing is, we're all a little bit different, but that's how they were done. So,
yeah. We're finishing up some of his questions here, but one of the ones that I had was, you know, as you are developing, or you have developed your line, which is you've got a really great line of pickups. I think that there was plenty to choose from, and I think the way that you position them helped us understand, oh, yeah, so we know what that is going to probably sound or feel like. Were there any, were you chasing any particular artists, tones in developing these at all?
Yeah, it's sort of not not but when starting by looking at like an era, if you're saying like, so I want to do, an early 60s Strat set. So then you start looking at, well, who was well known for using, all original early 60s Strats, and you just, and you go from there. And same with PAS, and same with, a mid late 50s Telly versus, a broadcaster set or versus, 60s set. And then of course, when you get into the CBS years, for Fender, that's a whole difference as well, isn't it? So yeah, the artist is part of it, because that helped me to really, hear it, to visualize it, as were, the tone. But a lot of it started with looking at individual years, and that's because, that's kind of how a lot of customers look at things too when it comes to pickups, is saying like, well, I want that 50s Gibson sound.
Yeah.
I want that, early, or they hear, say they see a YouTube video where a shop or somebody is showing off, I've got this, a 58 Les Paul special or something like that, and they're like, I want that P90 sound. I love that. Right. And obviously there's loads that goes into that when you're listening to these videos, and sound clips and everything, how was it recorded?
Tons of variables. Yeah.
So many variables, but this is how people, get started on their journey of, the addiction of gear, isn't it?
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
Into, I'm going to start modding my guitar, and then it never ends, does it? Really, for most of us.
Yeah.
And yeah,
we had. So we mentioned that we've got the pickups in two of the guitars here. One we put in a Squier 50s vibe Telly. And for those, we had the Texas T-types. T-type, yes. What for? I know that for many is a common term, Texas T, or along those lines. What about that pickup makes it a Texas T?
Well, the way I always saw it is when people talk about like that, that Texas blues sound, is just because it's a bit more in your face. And it's hotter. It's just got a hotter tone to it. It's a bit bitier. It's a bit grittier. It's a bit brasher. And so the bigger difference, specifically in our Texas T Tallys, because we do Texas T Strats as well. And with the Tallys, the big difference is they're wound really hot with the thin 43 gauge wire, like the old broadcasters were. But instead of the weaker Alnico 3 that the broadcasters have, they've got the more powerful and bitier Alnico 5. And it's just that, it's just
that's
that
making
more
sense now based on what we are hearing.
Right.
I appreciate that explanation, because I think when we went through the range, we could hear in one of the guitars, it felt, I think, very straight, almost very clean, where you weren't hearing any major spikes in the EQ of it. And then we hit another one where it was like, whoa, the treble was kind of like a little bit brash. And on yours, I think, well, Rob, you played it. What did you experience with that?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember here, because that's 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I think I kind of remember thinking it was kind of like a T, but almost like a P90 kind of forwardness mixed in.
Yeah. I remember it being a little bit more heavy on the bottom end, a little bit.
Yeah,
and a little rounded on the top.
Yeah, and I remember more, the way I describe it was more forward, just like it stood out much more. Yeah, I don't know how to describe that. Not necessarily hotter, though.
Yeah. When I was listening to it, And the reason that I personally responded well to these pickups is that I play more, I guess, more on the rhythm side, and with a little bit more of a heavier sound, to where I'm not like sitting back doing lightweight rhythms. I'm doing forward lead. It's like the rhythm is carrying the whole song, so it's gotta have a little bit more throat to it, and that's what I really liked about these. And so, Rob, when you were, I think you were talking about you're used to hearing like that full range of the chime, and
a
the
more
brightness.
traditional
and
T,
more traditional.
and that's what I told you, Todd. Is usually when I pick up a T, whatever, in the bridge position, even before I start playing it, I immediately roll off the tone knob a little bit. And with your pickups, that was not not needed. It didn't have that. It was EQ'd more.
Yeah.
It's going to be a bit fuller because, like I say, as with the same windings on a broadcaster, it's a thinner wire, but there's quite a lot of it on there. There's quite a lot of turns, and that ups the capacitance as well a bit. So that's going to fill it out,
Yeah.
And then the Alnico 5 does have more mid scoop usually, but the higher overall output kind of counteracts a bit of that, so it's not too scooped.
Yeah.
But it stays quite full across the range.
And you also sent us a set of P90s, soap bars, that you call your house special P90 set. And I popped those into an Epiphone Wilshire reissue. And I will go on the record. My usual choice for P90s is I usually go with Fralins. And
yeah, they're great.
Putting your pickups are about. I mean, they had, to me, they sounded very similar to what Lindy does in his pickup his P90 pickups.
Well, I'm very happy to hear that.
Yeah,
he's one of my heroes.
Yeah,
so.
no, he's a great guy too. We've had him on the show, and I'll tell you, compared to the factory Epiphone pickups, I mean, the difference is night and day. I mean, the originals, while they're not bad, they're just they don't have. They were missing that mid-range growl that I expect out of a P90, and they tended to be a little more tinny or high-endy. And when we popped yours in, I mean, it just had that sound.
Yeah,
that's what I really liked. And one thing we didn't mention is, in addition to being really great sounding pickups, the packaging on them is really second to none. They come in these beautiful wooden boxes that are branded on the top. It says House of Tone Pickups. And the nice thing about it is, after you can put your picks or other parts or different things inside the little box. So that's a really nice little extra that you're
and
doing.
all the explanatory bits too.
Oh yeah, I mean it comes.
You're well informed when you get the pickups.
Yeah, I mean it tells you exactly what type of pickups, what the wind. Like in my case with the P90s, you have an 825 on the bridge and 7.9, which is about what I normally do. I mean, I usually have Lindy or someone else wind 10% over on the bridge pickup, and I mean that's exactly where you are. So, and then you list the type of magnets used, what their polarity is. So, yeah, sometimes you get a pickup in, and you just have to kind of guess, especially if it has a 4-conductor lead. And these, of course, had braided shields, but just well done. I mean,
thanks.
I think
thanks. Appreciate that.
Tony doesn't sugarcoat that stuff too much, and Rob doesn't know where the sugar is at all. But
it's in his cereal box.
Yeah. So when he played that,
Todd.
Yeah. But legit, when he played that, I saw his face. Like that kind of said everything. He was.
That's the sound I expect out of a P90.
A legit endorsement right there.
No, fantastic. No, I'm made up to hear that. I'm glad you like them.
Good. Well, all right. I think we've given everybody a pretty fair dose of what House of Tone is dishing out and all about.
Where can you get those?
Yeah.
We sell direct. We do have a couple of small dealers around, not in the United States, though I'm hoping to change that this year. We got some interesting things coming up soon, hopefully. But we've got a dealer here, a couple shops in Japan and India. But direct, you just get in touch. We post to the US all the time. It's our second biggest, market after the UK. So it's not a problem. We post them out and they usually get to the States within about 5 working days, and postage isn't particularly expensive. Usually about 20 pounds, depending on, the size of the parcel.
Yeah.
And just go straight through our website. We don't have direct ordering because everything we do is so customized. So even though on the website it's got, our usual recipe ones, so the majority of people ask for customizations, and that's what we love doing is to really tailor it to whatever you've got in your head, the sound you're looking for. So, like the house special P90s you were just talking about. So as standard, we do them with sort of a very late 50s, early 60s kind of Gibson wind with short Alnico 5 magnets. But we can do anything. We can do them in the early 50s. We can do them with the long A3 magnets. We can do them underwound, overwound. We can get into all kinds of different customizations. And then, of course, with the covers. And so there's just so many options that instead of having, buy it now sort of buttons on the website, you just get through the contact form. It goes direct to the email. And then we'll just start a dialogue from there about exactly what you're looking for. And then we use PayPal and send them out, as I say, tracked and insured over to the States is no problem at all.
Awesome. Well, if your interest is piqued, highly suggest checking these out. We're really pleased with them.
Yep.
And it's always great to, have variety. As much as we like things the way that we think we like things, the whole reason the guitar community exists is because we want more different things. Yes.
More brains.
Yes.
More brains.
So speaking of more brains, Tony.
Yes, Todd.
Let's take a ride.
That's right. We're going to hop in the Aston Martin DB5.
What?
Yes. I've upgraded from the El Camino.
El Camino's getting an oil change. Okay.
It was leaking. So
yes.
Yeah, so a buddy of mine lent me his DB5.
Perfect.
And we're going to hop on down, drive around, maybe even stop over and see Jared in Nashville, Tennessee.
Okay.
But Rob, you'll have to sit in the trunk. I'm sorry.
In the boot.
In the boot.
Yeah,
In the boot.
Seems fitting. Okay.
Yeah.
Because at this point of the show, it's a special little game we like to play called Would You Rather?
Yeah. Okay. He's been away for a while, everybody. I apologize.
Yes.
He's ornery.
Yeah.
This week's Would You Rather is brought to us by Stu of WPA.
Yes.
Only he knows what that
Yes.
means. So Stu says to us, I have a Would You Rather. It's another time machine one.
We love those.
We love the time machine ones. So you're in the studio with your band, and the diva-like producer turns to you and says, your pedals just aren't cutting it. We need historic dirt. I've got a fever, and the only cure is more historic dirt.
Okay.
You understand?
Yes, I'm getting it.
Less cowbell, more historic dirt.
Yes.
You
I'm
understand?
following. I'm tracking. So is everyone else.
Okay, I'm just double checking. Sometimes you don't follow where I'm going here. He points to a strange phone booth in the corner. Now this is different from our normal time machine.
Yeah.
He explains that this time machine has only 2 buttons. Only 2.
Okay.
Our normal one, we could set the dials and things and do all kinds of things. Sometimes switch band members. You remember. Mm-hmm. One button will send you back to the 1950s, placing you in front of Ike Turner's torn speaker amp right after recording Rocket 88. And I think we know that sort of gravelly, grindy, dirty sound.
Yeah.
The other will send you back into the 1980s, placing you by Eddie Van Halen's Variac choked Marshall after recording one of their various hits. And we know there were various hits. You must choose which one you want to snatch and bring back to the future to lay down some tasty tracks for your ego-driven producer.
Okay.
Oh, just in case you're wondering, Stu's choice was the Van Halen.
Yeah. Duh for him.
Duh.
All right. We're going to start off with Tony Baloney here.
Yeah.
And then we will go around the horn and then check in with Matt.
Well, you know, I totally dig Ike's tone out of Rocket 88. But here's the thing. If I need that sound, I can just slice up Eddie's speakers and get a very similar sound.
You think so?
I think so.
I don't think so.
Well, you know, ask Dave Davies about how you cut up speakers.
Yeah, but there's a lot more going into the whole thing.
You think so?
Yeah, because it's not just about speakers.
Well, in Ike's case, it was mostly speakers.
Okay.
So I'm going to choose, just to be different, because I know what everyone else is going to do. Because I've been to the future and I've come back because I have a time machine. I am going to go with Ike's rig.
Okay.
Just to be different.
I appreciate that.
Okay.
All right, Rob.
Van Halen.
No.
It's a Marshall.
Duh.
It's a Marshall. Yeah, come on.
Yeah, but it's the dirt part specifically that we're talking about.
Well, yeah, and I mean I mean what he was going after was a cranked plexi, but trying not to deafen everybody.
He was
quite as
going
much.
for a browned out plexi.
It wasn't browned out until he did it.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
the rig you have to choose.
Right,
It's
right,
the
right.
Variac.
Right. But what I mean is that what the whole reason he did the brown thing and the Variac was that he wanted the sound of the whole thing turned to 10, but
without killing your ears.
they were like, you're too loud. You got to do something. It's like, okay, well, if I turn down the volume. Oh, listen, it takes a little bit off of it, but it still breaks up the same way. So,
And then just think what he would have sounded like if he would have sliced the speakers.
Yeah.
Stu, what about you?
Yeah. Stu?
No, not Stu.
It's Matt.
Oh,
Matt.
Stu. Matt.
Stu told us.
Poor Matt's over here. He's like,
Do you have a direct line
did I
into
change
Stu?
my name?
Come in,
I
Stu.
said, when did we get Stu on?
Yeah, this would be great.
That would be really cool. Sorry, Matt. I had Stu on the mind. Go ahead, Matt. What's your
Right.
choice?
It would have to be Ike Turner.
Yeah. Okay,
Yep.
you're with me.
Wow.
It's just that's the tone I like. Raw and rough. You can't get rawer than that. That's a homemade sound.
Oh yeah.
Totally homemade sound. So definitely.
All right.
Welcome to Island Tony.
Okay, so it's 2 against 1, Todd. Which way are you going to go?
Well, I love the Van Halen sound, but it is very specifically that sound. And to me, it always feels like really compressed, and I don't like compressed sounding drive. It's not my bag of chips.
That's what your volume knob is for.
It's not. It's more. There's more to it than that. It's about feel, Rob. I'll tell you about it someday.
Them's fighting words.
I'm going.
No,
I'm going with Ike.
Come
I'm going
back.
with Ike.
Come back, Rob. Come on. Play along. You're going with Ike?
I'm going with Ike. Yeah. Because
Wow. I thought I was going to be the only one on Island Tony.
I mean, think about some of my, where my, I guess, root tones are centered,
Nice.
And I like that anything right out of the, I can't do right out of the box very well. I don't work very well that way. And to me, anything associated with that, with like, oh, it's Van Halen and it's the dirt's in the amp and everything, I'm like, I'm just going to sound like that to a degree. And I don't want that. So there.
Nice. Well, that was a pleasant surprise.
Indeed. Rob's on Van Halen Island.
I still say we gotta because Todd has never played through a vintage Marshall with a very, he's never experienced that situation.
But I know what that. I mean, we've got loads of records and songs to reference.
That's not his sound.
Well, that's fine for Van Halen, but Todd playing through that would not be anything like that. Because it's once you plug it in, then you'll be like, oh, all right, it's
yeah. I'm
not
going to disagree with that.
I'm going to drag you to the house and make you play one of these rigs.
You don't have to.
Sometime.
You don't have to drag me. I'll go willingly.
This is like the Tide Pod challenge, isn't it?
Yeah.
This one tastes
That's what's going to
delicious.
follow it. Yeah. If he doesn't agree with me, well, I'm going to force a bunch of those down.
Yeah. Anyways, all right. Thanks so much, Stu. That was a really good one.
Thank you, Stu.
And we're going to thank a few people real quick, and then we're going to bid adieu.
Well, that is right, Todd, because at this point of the show, there's a special group of people we love to thank. These are our executive producers. Now, an executive producer makes this show possible. How do you become one? You head over to patreon.com/the Guitar Knobs. Check out a couple different levels in which you can participate. Become a patron, a sponsor, a friend, a hero of the podcast.
Truly.
Each level comes with some very nice thank you gifts, and I do mean very nice.
You know what? And speaking of Tina, we do need another hero, so forget that noise.
Yes. We'll need another hero.
Yeah, no, we need all of them.
Oh, we don't need that.
Oh, okay. That was kind of a cross between Yoko and Tina, isn't it?
Yeah. That's about the worst recipe I can
trash
think of.
compactor.
Wow.
Yes. Okay, go ahead.
Everyone's a critic. In addition to getting all these very nice thank you gifts and opportunities to win special prizes, we do giveaways. Stuff comes in, we give it away. Stuff goes out, we give it away. Well, it doesn't work that way.
No.
But I guess the giveaways go out.
Thank goodness you don't work in logistics.
Yeah. Oh, well. But in addition to all that great stuff, there's one thing more. Jared, what would that be?
You get to have your name written on the thing.
That was not a good Jared. Sorry,
I
Todd.
tried to exaggerate
That's pretty good.
Yeah, it's first of the year. I'll give you a little slack. That's right. You get your name right on the thing. That's what I'm going to do right now. So special thanks to these executive producers: Vader and Pedals, John Alverson, Rick Calhoun, Trevor Gunberg, Elad Mizrahi, Mike D, Richard Kendall, James White, Motandra Guitars, Anthony Gemolero, Bill Gola Guitars, John Esterly from Rare Bzzz Effects, Anthony Lathrop, Stefan Lamb, Michael Senchuk, Ken Sayers, Doug Christ, Darren Gregory, Tom Brazen, Rusty Sneeden, Ralph Gottschalk from Wonderful Audio Technology. What? Don Kloss, Gregory Randall, Brett Hogarth, Eric Hemmer, Stuart George, Michael Furman, James Bell, James Romer, Cameron Pampas, Trevor Ellenberg, Christopher Logan, and John Sebastian.
That's great.
But Todd, there's more. Because we have a special group of executive producers. We call them our
Grand Poobahs.
Thank you very much. I'm glad you just jumped right in there. I love that. I love that about you.
Like Abbott and Costello.
Who's on first? Yeah. Our Grand Poobahs, of course, live in the penthouse suite at Guitar Knobs headquarters.
Yes.
At the very top of the floor. They bathe in a delicious and delightful orange liquid whilst wearing their fezzes.
And at the same time.
No, that is not right. So special thanks to these Grand Poobahs. Tommy Manasco, Ricardo Iguareda, David Kaminga, Brandon Wound Pickups, Hex Matos, Michio Murakishi, Bob Crouch, Jack Cadian, Sam Jett, Tyler Casey Rhines, LSJ Music Company, John Williams, James Pennington, Steve Keys, Cody Foster, Science of Sound, Brian Robison, Jonathan Jerusik, Corey Nigro, Michael Van Zant, Tim Nowak, Jonathan Daly, Martin Cliff, Sean S. David Poe, Billy Spitfire Unlimited, Congregation Gear Demos, Paul Vaughn. I want to always say Van.
I know.
Damn. Paul Von Eppinger, Scott Sullivan, Great Lakes Guitar Pickups, Matt Hart, Enrico Fernando, Moon Guitars. Adam Johnson, Eric Edwards. Oh, and did I mention we have an upgrade this week?
Indeed.
From executive producer to Grand Poobah, David Tyndall.
Yes.
Thank you, David. You're in very, very good company. Enjoy the orange liquid.
Yes, and the box of goodies heading your way.
Oh, yes.
We are grateful to all of your support. It truly helps the show keep a-rolling. Speaking of a-rolling, we're rolling out of here. We need to say a tremendous thank you to Matt of A House of Tone Pickups. Matt, thank you so much for spending your time with us today.
My pleasure. No, thanks, guys. This was real good fun.
And where can people go to get these pickups one more time?
So if you go to houseoftonepickups.com and have a look through, there's links there to YouTube channel, to some sound clips, and then you can go down to the contacts form, get in touch with us through that, or direct to the email, which is also there on the contacts form, and we can get whatever you're looking for sorted.
And how about social medias?
Social media, yes, we are on Instagram, House of Tone Pickups. We're on Facebook, House of Tone, and YouTube channel, House of Tone Pickups.
Perfect. Tony, where can people find what you do?
Head over to pickguardian.com. Check out some of the stuff that I do. I have some stuff you can actually buy through the website, but you know what? Most of the stuff I do is custom.
Yep.
And in my experience, it's always better to do a custom thing.
Yep.
Because we'll know it fits.
Yeah.
So pickguardian.com.
And you're going to get materials that are
there's stuff
crazy.
I try to find some crazy stuff. I, of course, stock all the regular stuff, but head over to pickguardian.com. Check it out. Shoot me an email. Let me know what you need.
Yep. Rob?
Mad Cow Amplification, Instagram, Facebook.
Do it.
YouTube.
Yep. Watch Rob complain. All right. And you can shoot me a DM on Instagram and tell me all about your lovely guitar life. Share your Would You Rathers with us. That'd be great. So Instagram is @GuitarKnobs. And
let us know if there were any holiday surprises.
Oh, yeah. We'd love to know if you guys got cool stuff from the holidays. That'd be great. And without further ado, we're going to bid you all a very happy Guitar Week. And subscribe! Wow. Okay, I do have a couple here. Give me 1 second.
Just pick one and send it to me, please.
Housekeeping.
Housekeeping.
What are you doing?
I'm autographing that for you.
You twit. Okay. Oh, crap. Hang on a second.
Thank you, Todd.
It's his first day.
Yeah.
We've been off for 2 weeks.
First day of
throwing me off.
2020.
Going into the new year.
Yes.
Jeez. Grumpy Todd.
I'm at WKRP in Cincinnati.
I almost didn't hit record.
Have you guys had some time off?
I actually just looked up and I was like, oh, I got to record. That's only ever happened one other time.
15 or 20 minutes into the episode, he's the grumpy podcast host.
This is what he's projecting on me. You see that? That's awesome.
That was great.
I think.
Yeah, that's down near Cardiff, down South Wales, Newport.
Yeah, that's down in Cardiff.
Cardiff.
This is screwing my brain, man. Yeah, down in Cardiff, Wales.
Down in Cardiff, Wales. Can't you tell?
Yeah.
We need to start medicating him.
They're ragging on me here.
Yeah. What comes around goes around.
But I can't. I don't pick on anything you guys can fix. You bums.
You can fix it by putting a knitting needle into your ear.
That would help. Anyways, we've gotten off track. Let's get back on track. And away we go.
Well, that's it for these knobs. Please visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/theguitarknobs. Visit our website at theguitarknobs.com for all of our past episodes, 4 on the Floor blog, and other good stuff. You can connect with us on social too at our Facebook page and share your gear and stories on our Facebook group. Also, be sure to check out our Instagram at Guitar Knobs. Catch you next time.